Boker Tov. Today's Daf is Daf Ayin Hey. But Messias we learn for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and assume about Sarva Shivya. Says the Mishnah near the top of the page. Lo Yomar Adam L'Chaveiro Halveni Kur Chitim. A person should not tell another person. A creditor should not tell the debtor. Or rather, a debtor should not tell the creditor. Lend me a bushel, let's say, of wheat, and I'll pay you back the same bushel or an equivalent bushel at the harvest time. That's what we call saw b'saw, which technically is not rebit to Oraisa because it's not a fixed amount. It's not like I'm giving you $100 and I want 120 back. It's simply a bushel for a bushel. So you say it's the same thing, but the price of the bushel may go up, and therefore it's like rebit. And therefore the rabbis forbade it unless the debtor himself had some wheat in his own possession. Aval the debtor could say, Halveni acher yavo b'ni, lend me a bushel until my son comes home, meaning until he's able to get into his storehouse. Oh, or until I find the key. In other words, I have wheat, I just don't have it handy right now. It's not accessible right now. My son is coming home, he has it, or I'll find the key to the barn, wherever I keep the storehouse, the silo, whatever. Then you're allowed to. What's the difference? Technically, either way, the bushel might go up in price. Okay, well, first of all, it's a bit less likely that it's going to go up in price if he's just waiting for his son to come home until he finds the key. It's a smaller amount of time. Or you could just say, like Rashi says, that when it's the whole Isra of saw b'saw, lending a bushel for getting back a bushel is only an Isra Rabbanan because it's not really Ribis to Oraisa, just it may go up in price. And here the Rabbanan were not gozer if you had it in your possession. The Hillel Oser. Hillel was very makbid, and he did not do this at all. Even if you had it in his, even if the debtor had some of his possession. Hillel used to say, "Lo salva isha." A woman shouldn't even lend a loaf of bread to her neighbor until they fix a price for it. In other words, say, "Listen, I'm giving you $1 worth of bread, and you owe me $1." That's okay because $1 for $1, that's not rebit. But if you're giving a loaf of bread today, the loaf of bread may be worth more tomorrow. That is like rebit or abanam, and Hillel was makbid even on that. We don't go that far. Why? Because Hashem Yugrechitni. Because maybe the price of the wheat will go up, and then supposed to this will come to ribis. So therefore, Hillel forbade it even in a case like that. We don't go that far. The rabbis said basically a bushel for a bushel is no good because the price may go up unless you have some in your possession. So it's like you have the ability to pay it back right now. You didn't really pay it back right now, but you have that ability. Then the Rabbanan would not go. So Rashi says, the Kim the Yesh Lo Shaper Dam the Saba says only it's Rabbanan. And then Lav Neshach Lo Rice. It's not really Minator, but Yesh Lo Lagon. So they weren't gozer if you had it in your possession. Now, how much wheat do you have to have in your possession for it to be not a problem of rebit? Amar Rav Huna, Yesh Lo Saw Lo V'Saw, it's a sign of a sign. It's only not a problem for rebit if you have the same equivalent in your possession. Meaning I'm borrowing 10 bushels, I have 10 bushels to pay it back. Only in a case like that is it not rebitted as a mutter, which is pretty strange. If you have 10 bushels, why would you borrow 10 bushels? Okay, maybe because you need 20. Maybe because you need 20. If I have 10, I could borrow 10. If I have 5, I could borrow 5. Maybe because you need them all at one time, whatever the reason is. Even if you have a smaller amount, as long as you have some wheat, you don't have to have the whole amount that you're paying back. And Rashi explains because each one, you're actually not paying it back with that one, but each little amount has the ability to pay back a partial amount of the amount that you're borrowing. So on each and every amount that you're borrowing, you can say, technically, you could pay it back right now. So even though you didn't pay it back right now, you don't actually have to pay it. You could use it and sell it and do something else with it. But it's like you have the ability to pay it back, and therefore, every amount that you borrowed, you really have some. If you look at it individually, you actually have some in your possession that you could pay back. And the Rabbanan were not gozer saw b'saw in a case like that. Tani Rav Chia brought a proof l'siul of Yitzchak to bring a proof to Rav Yitzchak's second opinion. The second opinion listed by Rav Yitzchak that you don't have to have the same amount of bushels in your possession that you're borrowing for it not to be a problem of saw b'saw. It says over there, tipas yayin. If you have just a drop of wine, ein lo. He doesn't have any wine. Tipas shemen ein lo. It's mashma. In other words, you shouldn't. If you borrow wine or oil, whatever, and you don't have any in your possession, then it's a problem of saw b'saw. It's like a bushel for a bushel, and the price may go up. You have a drop of wine. Usually you don't borrow a drop, right? So it's mashma, if you have a drop of wine, even if you don't have enough wine, you're borrowing maybe a barrel of wine. But if you have a drop of wine in your possession, then it's not a problem of saw b'saw. The Rabban will not go to there. Yes. This like in many places in Shas, it would have been better if this was said at the very beginning of the parak. Right. We've had this already. Exactly. This is the basic idea of saw b'saw that we've been talking about. The previous mission on yesterday's daf talked about lending the money to an artist, to a sharecropper, right? You're allowed to do it under certain circumstances, and you're not over in saw b'saw. So first teach me about saw b'saw, right? This is the saw b'saw. This is the mission about saw b'saw that we've been referring to. What are exceptions to saw b'saw? You could why under these certain circumstances that we listed yesterday, if the artist was supposed to supply it and he didn't, etc., etc. But normally the regular issur of saw is there, and that's what we're talking about in this mishnah. The previous mishnah, ain't post shar. Okay, then if you don't have it, there you're talking about a fixed a price of purchasing. But here we're talking about borrowing a bushel for another bushel. That's basically forbidden drabanan. But Hillel was machmer, and he answered. Hillel, sir. Amav Nachman Amar Shmuel Loch Debei Hillel. Now Loch is like Hillel. That's what Nachman Shmuel says. But Loch is not like him. Just before I forget, a correction on yesterday. Michael's point was well taken. I forgot the Gemara in Memches. Michael asked yesterday in the Misha Par, a person who goes back on a deal. He didn't make Mashiach yet, but he paid for it. So he said, even according to Rabbi Yochanan, that money is kona midaraisa, midarabanan. It's not kona until you make mashicha. Okay, so if you only paid for it, you went back on the deal. Whoever went back on the deal, we said even according to Reb Shimon, gets a mishapara. How do you get the mishapara? Apparently, only if you go to court, because it says over there, the Gemara over there talked about is he simply say those words, or is it actually a curse? That was the Gemara discussed. How is it actually a curse that they give him? It's mashma that they went to court and the person who felt wrong complained, said the other guy went back on the deal. The Gemara said, we let him know that you're going to get cursed. It's like just like a Misha Berach, a Misha Para. It's actually that. Rabbi says, Mele, you actually curse him as Misha Para. I guess it's like what I said yesterday. It's like a Misha Berach. You say the Misha Berach. You don't think about it. You say Misha Berach. You give him Misha Berach. You say a Misha Para. So the Bezdin apparently does that to the person who did the wronging. Pardon? Yeah, public reprimand, right? But the point is that it has to be, he has to take him to court, otherwise it's not going to work. All right. So the Gemara says that even though Nachman Shmuel paskin like Hillel, we don't paskin, we don't go that far. So these are the words of Hillel. It says you shouldn't even lend, a woman shouldn't lend a loaf of bread to somebody without monetizing it. That's the way to use it. That's when, today every noun becomes a verb today, right? It's not money, it's monetized, right? You monetize it by saying, look, it's worth $1. I'm giving you $1 worth of bread. You owe me $1. If it's a small thing, you could lend that. Here's a cup of sugar. You give me back a cup of sugar. Things like that people are not so makbid about. Then you're allowed to on small things that people are not makbid. People are stam. Even the Yisr of Saw B'Saw, on small amounts, they were not mak. Amir Mishmuel. You have a group of people, maybe other people, themselves said, they are particular with one another. You gave me 6 rolls today, I'll give you back 6 rolls. They're very mak, but they don't say, I'm about to mak on each and everything. So if they do this on Shabbos, right? Can you lend me 2 challah rolls, or could you lend me whatever bottle of ketchup or something small? If they're over mishamido, mishamishko, mishaminyan. In other words, they're makbid with one another, whether it's measure, whether it's weight, or whether it's a count. So on Shabbos, if they do this generally they're makbid. You gave me 14 lemons, I'll give you back 14 lemons. They're very makbid about that. If they do that on Shabbos, they're over. What are they over on Shabbos? So Tosafos says they're over of uvdurachol, because it's like doing business like what you do during the weekdays. You borrow, you do business and stuff like that. So uvdurachol, it's not an isur d'oraisa, it's not a malacha on Shabbos, but you're over because of that. And u'mishin lavan upon biyontiv, and you're also over for borrowing and paying back on yontiv. What's the problem there? Rashi says there the concern is that you might come to write it down on an IOU. So he said you shouldn't do that on yontiv, or certainly on Shabbos. Mishum lavan upon Shabbos. So people who are makbid with one another, if they do that on Shabbos, then they're over because of uvda d'chol, and possibly over on borrowing and lending on Shabbos yontiv, because they might write it down. According to Hillel, mishum ribbis, even because of ribbis. Why? Because according to Hillel, if you lend merchandise, produce, commodity to somebody else, that's a problem of ribbit because the price of might have gone up. Hillel is very makbid about that. Listen to this. A Talmud Chacham is allowed to lend money to another person, to another, not necessarily money, but he says ribbis, even though it sounds like he could actually say ribbis my time. Many ribbis, they know ribbis is forbidden. They're simply giving him a gift. And Tosas points out, dafka is something small that he knows in his heart he would have given it to him anyway. In other words, I said, listen, can you lend me, 10 challah rolls, and later on, I'll give you back 12 later on. I don't need them at the end of the day, 11 or 12. He could do that. Isn't that ribit? They know what ribis is. And here he's doing it. He says, listen, I'm just giving it to you as a gift, even though it sounds to us like, we should be makbid about those things. Shaila, if somebody lends you money and they don't take ribit, can you say thank you? Right? We'll see this ribis dvarim. Can you say thank you? That's also a shaila. Can you say thank you or whatever? That's a problem. So here, but if they're both Talmidei Chacham and they know ribis is usher, then he's only given it to him as a gift. And the other person knows that he would have given it to him as a gift anyway, says the bottom Tosas. Near Dafka Davar Muad, he would have given him something anyway. And even this small kind of a gift is only by a Talmud Chacham. Only Talmidei Chacham who know the halachas, and they know that you shouldn't take ribbit. They shouldn't do that. So they know he wouldn't give ribbit and he wouldn't take ribbit. So when he's taking, he's saying he's just giving it as a gift. When you have kavanah that way, and he says dafka Talmidei Chachamim, and dafka, a very small thing that they could do, which is a big finish. Matana diyav, like my time, maybe they know this asur. Matana diyav, that's simply gift. Amalei Shmuel Avua Bari. Shmuel told Avua Bari, Alveni mea pilpulin, the mea, the mea v'esrim pilpulin. Please lend me 100 peppers, and I'll give you back 120. But aruch, and that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. Why? In other words, he's giving you a case like that. He lent to Shmuel, said to Avua Bari, lend me 100 pilpuls, and I'll give you back 120. And it's a good thing. Why? Because he would have given it to him anyway. It certainly wasn't done in the form of ribbit. I'm remember Rav. You can lend your children, your family money for ribbit. Why? Because it's not really ribbit. You assume it's all money in the same family anyway. So it's not really ribbit. But you could teach them what ribbit is. He says, listen, I'm giving you $10. You got to give me back next week $12. You got to give me back more. So give him a taste of how ribbit hurts, because he's got to pay back more. Now he's got to go and work and mow a few more lawns until he could pay back the loan to his father. Teach the kid what pain is. That's pain. But that's incorrect. You shouldn't do that. Because it'll cling to him. He'll say, he'll start learning what ribbit is, and the kid might start lending money to other people for ribbit. So it's not a good idea to test those kind of things. But the big chiddush about the rabbis, that they could take small amounts. We're talking about small amounts. I'll give you, 5 rolls, and you'll give me back 6 rolls. Is that okay? So that's a difficult. It seems like a difficult halacha, because we say even saying thank you is a problem. But here they allowed it because we know that both Talmidei Chachamim, they know it was only meant as a gift. Omer Adam says the Mishnah, man could say, look, it's hard. It's time to work the fields. We don't have enough workers. If you weed, help me weed my field, take out the weeds with my field today, I'll help you do the same tomorrow on your field. Even though maybe the field is a little bit different in size, maybe he'll work a little bit longer day. We're not because doing the same kind of work. So if you work with me today, if you weed with me today, I'll weed with you tomorrow. Or ador imi ador mcha. will remove the dig the earth up, use it to hoe. Odorimo, you hoe with me today, and I will hoe with you tomorrow. But he shouldn't say shouldn't say shouldn't say weed with me today and I'll hoe with you tomorrow, or adorimi, or hoe with me today, and I will weed with you, because those aren't the same kinds of work. So one may be more than the other. That is like ribit. Again, ribit drabanan, certainly not ribit saraisa. Kol yemei grid achad. If it's work that's done in the summertime, in the heat, grid is meaning the heat time, they're all the same. Meaning you can't say, well, the days in April or whatever are not as long as the days in July. So that is like ribit. No, we're not looking at it that way. A summer day is a summer day. Kol yemei revi, all the days of the rainy seasons are also one, even though some are longer than others. So you can't. So if he says, hoe with me today and I'll hoe with you tomorrow, and we're talking about the same season, that's okay, even though one day may be longer than another. Lo yomer lo, you shouldn't say charoshi grid. Plow with me in the summer months, and I will plow with you in the winter. In the winter, when the ground is wet and watery, it's harder to plow. So that you shouldn't do. We mentioned this before. There is also kind of pre-interest and post-interest. What do we mean by the case of? I want to borrow some money from this guy. I know he has money. What did I do? I sent him flowers, Erev Shabbos. I'm sending these flowers, and he writes a little note on it. Hope you'll be able to lend me some money next week, right? That's like rebit that he's paying in advance. It's called advance or pre-ribbit, right? Zui ribbit, that's like advanced ribbits. Loving men, let's say he borrowed money from him. Return the money. Borrow the money, return the money. Then he sends him flowers the following Shabbos. And he says, listen, I'm giving you these flowers because I know, while your money was with me, you couldn't invest it, you couldn't do anything with it. In other words, I'm giving you interest for the loan. Zui ribis machas, that's like post-dated, post-rebid. Both of those are also drabanan according to Rabbi Gamliel. Shimonam yeshubis dvarim. There's even ribis when it comes to words. Lo yomer lo adam, lo yomer shouldn't say daki ba ish plani mimakom ploni. The lova, I borrowed $100 from this guy. Now I have a good feeling to him because I would like to, be good with him because he lent me the money. I'll say, listen, by the way, do you know this guy just came in from out of town? I know you'd like to meet him. He's staying down at the King David. So you shouldn't do that either. That's also like doing him a favor. Some have the girsa of lo yomer lo imba, im ishba, meaning that the malva should not tell the lova, I lent you $100. By the way, can you check out for me if this guy's arrived in town yet? Here, the malva is asking the lova to do work for him. So since he lent him $100, it looks like in return for the loan, not only do you have to pay back the money, but also do me a favor and go check out if this guy has arrived in town. Either way, it would be ribid. The elu over and below sasa. The following people are over on the lav of taking ribis. There's more than one lav, as we've learned, right? The shnei lavin on each one. Who are people are over? A malva balova, obviously the lender and the borrower. The orev, the guarantor. The adam, the witnesses to the loan itself. And as we said, even the chamamim afa sofer, even the sofer, the scribe who writes it down. What are they over? So the Gemara is going to say, it's going to list which ones each one of them are over. What are they? What are the lav involved? Over mishum lo sitain. What are we talking about? Lo sitain. So this is a pasuk. There's psukim in both, in all three, in Shmos, Vayikra, and Barim. So the first one he quotes are the ones from Vayikra. In Vayikra it says, Al tikach meito neshach v'tarbis, and it says es kaspacha lo sitain lo b'neshach. So here he quotes the Mishnah says lo sitain. That's es kaspacha lo sitain lo b'neshach. And the previous pasuk lamed vav in Perikofei says al tikach meito neshach v'tarbis. So those are the first two, lo sitain and mishum al tikach. Okay, lo sitain is lo sitain. As both these are speaking to the malva, right? You shouldn't give him your money for a bit. And alti kachmate shouldn't take malva. Umishim lo siya lo kanosha. You shouldn't be like an oppressor, creditor who's pressing the poor borrower. Lo siya lo kanosha. That pasuk is a pasuk in Shmos, Michael, that we just read on Cholamoy, right? Im kesef talves ami esa'ani imach. Lo siya lo kanosha, don't be an oppressor, don't press him for the money. Lo sasima lo neshach, don't put upon him interest. That's that pasuk. So that's really one pasuk. These two, Losilo Kanosha and Losasimo Neshach, are both psukim in Perak Chafbeis, Pasuk Chaf Daled of Shmos. You were putting a stumbling block in front of them. Who's over on that? The Gemara is going to explain. How do you know that if there's a malva who's owed $100 by the loba, the loba normally doesn't say hello to this guy, but he lent the money. You're not allowed to say good morning. That's the pasuk in Dvarim, right? That says don't take ribis at all, right? It says lo sashich liachicha neshach kesef neshach okal. That's really speaking to the loba. Don't pay him. Neshach kol davar sheishach. Don't give him anything, even if it just means saying good morning when you don't normally greet him. That if you normally greet him, that's okay. But if you don't normally greet him, you're giving him something extra now. Even called dover. Dover means here dibur. Even words are also asur. But over. Who's over on the yisurim of interest? Amar Abaya. Malva over Bakula. The Malva is over on all the psukim, even the ones that tell that Chara speak to the Lova. Says Rashi. Look at Rashi, fifth line, the first of the narrow lines in this page. The first narrow line is the fourth line. Malva over Bakulam. All of them. Do no say benesha b'shasava. Okay, he's giving the money for interest at the time that he lends the money. And he's taking interest at the time that he's paid back. Bulo kanosha. And he's like an oppressor when he's claiming the money, but Docho impresses the guy. When they set up the conditions, they said, I'm going to give you 100, you're going to give me back 120. That's when he placed upon him this usury. But no saying Michel if over, and he's causing him stumble, causing him to pay interest. She has our laloba. So they're over on all these things. Right, the first two are for sure. The first is Losit Beneshach. I'll think of Medeshach. That certainly speaks to the Malva. Losil Nosha, you shouldn't oppress him. Losasimul of Neshach. Right, what does that mean? When you make a condition, when you make the conditions of interest, that's putting upon him the usury laws and a favor. So the Malva is over on all those isurim that were mentioned in the Mishnah. Now the Mishnah did not mention Losashach liachifa. That's really speaking to the Lova, but the ones in the Mishnah are all of them apply to the Malva. So here he says Malva over Bekulam, Lova over Mishum Lo Sashich Liachicha. That wasn't really mentioned in the Mishnah, right? This is a pasuk in Dvarim, as we said. The Mishnah mentioned Vayikra and Shmos, right? This pasuk is in Dvarim of Lo Sashich Liachicha. You shouldn't pay ribis or anything else on money or produce or commodities or even words, as we've said. So lo sashach ulachicha lo sashach. Both those are some. He's also causing the malva to take rebit. They're all causing each other to stumble. Arava Adam, the guarantor and the witnesses ain't open elamishim lo sasimul neshach. They're only over of you place the when you did the conditions of you agree to these conditions and you're testifying to them and you're agreeing to them. Both the guarantor and the witnesses, they're over on placing the usury. Making it happen, causing the usury to happen. They're not the ones paying the usury, nor are they the ones collecting it, but they are causing it to happen. More than they gain, obviously they're gaining the interest. Mafsim, they lose out, as we said before. That when they make their money by interest, their assets collapse. We had that the other day on Ayin Aleph. Below owed, not only yet Elishamasima Moshe Rabbeinu Chacham. They make a fool out of Moshe Rabbeinu. Shemasim Moshe Rabbeinu Chacham with the Rasa Emes. In other words, it's the reverse. This is Lashon Sakinor. It's like hyperbole. They're making Moshe really the opposite of a Chacham, and Chas v'Chalil is saying the Torah is not true. But Omrim, they said, Elo Yodea Moshe Rabbeinu Shia Revach B'Davar. Had Moshe Rabbeinu realized how much money you can make in the banking business, Lo Yakosvo, he wouldn't have written this. In other words, they're like making fun of Moshe Rabbeinu. Rav Dim came back to Omar. If somebody owes you $100 and you know he doesn't have any money, you can't pay him. You're not supposed to pass in front of him. You're not supposed to make him feel bad as if you're making a claim. You show up. Talmud Lomer Lo Sia Lo Kanosha. You shouldn't be like an oppressor, like a person demanding his money. They both said, it's like you made two judgments against him. It's like you had two judgments against him. Why? Based on a pasuk. It says here, Kafta Enosh, you caused a man to pass over our heads. In other words, like to oppress us. We We came in fire and water. In other words, like two different judgments you passed upon us. Amar Rabbeinu Marav, call me Shiesh Lo Mos. Whoever has money, right? Whoever has money, Umalvo Son Shaloba Edim, and he lends them without witnesses. He lends the money. I have money to lend you, and I want to do it without witnesses. He does it without witnesses. Over Mishum Lefnei Velosik Mechshol. You're causing a blind person to stumble. What do you mean by that? Because when you lend the money without witnesses, without a document, an IOU, or anything like that, you're putting a thought into the other person. He could deny the whole thing. I gave you $100 cash, and you can forget about it. So better to have it on paper, have witnesses, etc. We're not talking about even ribbit here. We're just talking about you lend money stam to somebody, write it down. Always better to have it in writing. Better to have witnesses there. So you shouldn't be over. Otherwise, you're over unless you're mishal. You also can cause yourself to be cursed. The pasuk says also in Tillim, the ones who speak, the lips that speak falsehood should be silenced. Who speak falsehood. Atak means a falsehood against the tzaddik. Why? Because what's going to happen now? You're going to lend this money. You're going to lend $100 to this guy, and there's no witnesses, and he forgot about it. Now, when you claim it against him, he's going to say, I don't know you. I don't remember owing you any money, and he's going to deny it. Now you're going to look like like an oppressor. People saying, what are you asking for money? Do you have an IOU? Do you have witnesses? No, you're just demanding money from him. You're a liar. This man's a fine man. If he would have borrowed money from you, he would have paid it back. If he denies it, he probably didn't borrow the money, and you're claiming money from him. So you're a bad guy, and you will be cursed. Those words, those lips of yours should be silenced. The ones who speak against the tzaddik, and you're going to get cursed. So you're going to be cursed. So be careful. If you lend out money, make sure that you get post-dated checks, an IOU, or some sort of guarantee. Amalei Rabbanan. In other words, Lisa, the person, don't tempt the borrower to deny it. Amalei Rabbanan Rabashi. Kamakayim Ravina, Komashadam Rabbana. The rabbis told Ravashi that Ravina has fulfilled all the words of the rabbis. In other words, even if it's an Isra Rabbanan, he keeps that. He fulfills everything. He's totally righteous, and every law that the rabbis keep, he keeps those laws too. Sholach le b'haripanya demali shapsa. So Ravashi wanted to test out Ravina. Ravina is such a tzaddik; he keeps all the laws of the rabbis. So he wanted to test them out. So b'haripanya demali Shabbos, and as the evening of Erev Shabbos approached, right before Shabbos, he sent them a following note. Lishti mar asar says, could you lend me 10 zuz? The Isramalik tinara, because I just have to come upon a deal. There's a small piece of land that's available, the mitzvah to purchase. I want to buy this small piece of land. I don't have any cash handy. Can you lend me $10? And he wanted to test him out and see if he would follow these words of the rabbis who said, don't lend money out unless there's witnesses in writing. So he said that to him on Erev Shabbos. Now, Mefarshim explained that it wasn't totally a lie because this piece of land was available to him. It was available to him. In other words, he wouldn't lie. He says, listen, I have a small piece of land that I'm able to buy. Can you lend me $10 right before Shabbos to buy it? If it wasn't true, he was a liar. The truth is there was this piece of land available to buy, but he was testing him out to see if he would lend him the $10 without any witnesses or any writing. Shalach leis, Rabin answered him back, Nesi Mar Sadi, please bring witnesses. V'nechtav Kosman will write an IOU. Please, fine, no problem. You want me to lend you the $10? I'll lend $10. Bring witnesses, and we'll write it down all day. Shalach le'afilu ana nami. Even me, you don't trust me. You want to write it down. You don't even trust me. And I'm a rabbi, and I'm learned, and we're friends. You don't trust me without it writing down. Shalach le. He answered Ravashi. Answered Ravina. Ravina answered Ravashi. Ravina answered Ravashi. Ravashi said, "You don't trust me." Ravina answered, "Shalach le kosh mar." Certainly you, the Tarbigir said, you're busy learning all day. Mishdele, you'll forget about it because you're so busy learning, you're not even going to remember. You're so busy learning, you forgot that mili to chulin, things like lending money and eating and things like that mean nothing to you. You're so busy learning, you'll forget about it. The Goram calls me, and I will be cursed because I will demand the money. Fulfill that pasuk. If they allow me, I'll be that my lips should be silenced, and as I'll become like an Elam, like that, I'll be cursed because I'll be demanding the money and you'll deny it. because you'll forget the whole thing. That's why I'm insisting on this. So Ravina withstood the test, but the test wasn't based on a falsehood. He did really have a piece of land there to be Kona. Tan Rabbanim. Rabbis on Shloshet Soakim Be'ein. There are three people who cry out and they're not answered. And Rashi says, when we say answer, this sounds like the Rabbon Shalom that doesn't answer them. They cry to Hashem. No. It says Soakim Be'ein Shamata. They'll come to Bezdin and they won't be answered because their wounds are self-inflicted, what we call self-inflicted wounds, because of they did something that wasn't smart. Elaine, what is that? Mishesh Lamos, if a person has money, and he lends it out without witnesses, as we just said, if you lend it out without witnesses and he claims the money, people will say you're claiming money for nothing. If the money was owed to you, you would have witnesses or you'd have an IOU or something of that. So that's called a self-inflicted wound. You lent out money and you did it without witnesses, without an IOU, without anything in writing. It's your own fault. So when you come to court and claim the money, you're going to say, listen, if you had it, you're just going to be cursed because people are going to accuse you of falsely claiming this loan. Or if you acquire a master for yourself unnecessarily, we'll see what that means. If a person allows his wife to rule over him. So in a case like that, there's nothing you can do. Peasant can't help him in a case like that because he himself is what we call henpecked. Kona adolatzmamai. What is that middle one? We understand lending out money without witnesses. We understand a man who allows his wife to run the show. But what is this? What's kona latzma? Again, some say when people come and demand money from him, he says the money. Oh, my money was out by the goy. He's got my money. The guy's got the money. So you think that you're avoiding it. It's like saying my money's all tied up right now, right? I have nothing liquid. So he says the money's with the guy. Yeah, but if the guy hears about that, he'll come and take the money from you now. You're just using that as an excuse. You're saying, oh, my money's with the guy, and you're not going to stand against the guy, but the guy hears about it. Nothing the court could do. You brought it upon yourself. Why did you claim a false claim that the guy has your money? Some say if you give all your assets to your children and leave yourself destitute, dependent on your children while you're alive. After death, mine, give it to them. But while you're alive, keep the money for yourself. Right? You may need it. So if you write all your assets to your children, don't come to the court complaining. Some say the Bishlei B'Hait Basa, he has bad luck in this town. You don't go somewhere else just because you have bad luck in this town and you're not matzliach. No reason not to try things elsewhere. So all those are wounds that are self-inflicted. The person could have helped himself. He could have gone to another town. He didn't have to give all his assets to his children while he was alive, and he certainly didn't have to say that his assets are with the goy. So besides the fact that we said that the case of the Tina Ara, where Rav Ashi tested Ravina, he actually had the ability to do that. Rashi says even though to test him, he wasn't speaking falsehood, as I said. Ben Yoyada says that that he really had a small piece of land, and he had the must, but he was testing him in that sense. And then test him. He had the small piece of land was available. He even had money, but he wanted to test him out and see if he would lend him money for that. Now he tells a story with the Chazon Ish that there was a story where a Malva came and demanded money from somebody else, Batos, Bios Magil. In other words, there was a man, let's say in Bnei Brak, who had lent $100 to somebody else, right? And when he came to collect the money, he said, Yomi $110. There was no ribis involved. He just made a mistake. He says, I think the amount you lent, I think I lent you $110. Now, the nitva, the person who the money was claimed against, the nitva, that would be the lova, didn't want to fight with him. The guy says, you owe me $110. He says, okay, I'll pay $110. He was ready to pay the whole amount, right? Whatever, but he was afraid of ribit. I'll be glad to pay $100, but he knew in his mind he had only borrowed $100. So if he pays $110, he's paying ribit. It's not like two Talmidei Chacham that we said, if I lend you, a small loaf of bread for Shabbos and you give me back a bigger loaf of challah, whatever, I would have given you the gift anyway, and they know that ribis is usher. Here, the Toveya thought that he owed him, the Malva thought he owed him $110. The Lova thought it was only $100, but he was willing not to fight. I don't want to fight. I'll pay the $110, but he was afraid of ribit. So he came, Bamais Lifnei the Chazonish, that's how. There's no chashash me'atama muba gemar. We have a gemar in Baba Basra Daf Lamed of an inish deserving, and a person sometimes will buy his judgment. Now, sometimes a man has a claim against you in any case, in any business or whatever it is, and he's wrong. But rather than go to court, you'd rather just pay the money. You'd rather buy your own judgment. That's the famous of it inish, that's the famous of it inish and a person will pay his way out. Adam Tom and doesn't want to he doesn't want to fight even if he'd rather go home without having a fight, and he's allowed to do it in that case. So there, again, he didn't do, certainly it was not Ribis D'Oraisa, because it was nothing fixed. It wasn't like I'm giving you 100, you're getting back 110. It was simply a mistake. But the Malva might have been mistaken. He said Yomi 110 else, but the Loba was afraid of Ribit. It's not Ribit. Because I'm willing to pay money just to close. There are many cases like that. Many cases in life where you're willing to pay just to get, not to go to court. That's all very valid.
But they were also
That's right. Not writing it down, not having witnesses to it. That would be the Malva. The Malva would be over on that. Hadlach said that's the end of this parak. Let's just see a few words from the Mishnah. You hired workmen, artisans, whatever. So we'll see. The Mishnah is a little bit complicated. The first part of the Mishnah means where they didn't start working yet. He walked out. He didn't want to come to work, right? Or he promised them, let's say, $3 an hour, and he sent somebody to hire these workers, and the guy promised them $4 an hour. They hadn't started working yet. He says they can have complaints against one another, but you don't really have a case. But let's say something was time dependent. He hired a donkey driver or a wagoner, Lavi Piper, to bring like wood or whatever, finished wood, chalilim or flutes, lakalo, lames, either for a wedding or for a funeral procession. Upon lasses pishna, or workers to take care of his flax, to steep them in a mishra, to soak them. In other words, this is stuff that it's time dependent. If you don't do it now, it's going to go bad, right? Or the wedding is taking place, the funeral is taking place, the flax are going to go bad. Anything that's lost, and they stopped. They went back on the deal. So if there's nobody else that you can hire, Socher Lane, you can hire people at a higher rate and charge these people for going back on the deal if it's a time-dependent thing. Oh, Matan, or you could fool them and promise them more money even though you're not going to pay it because they went back on the deal. Let's say you hired workers like a kablanim to finish a job. This is what you're going to pay for the whole job for the kablan, and they went back on chosben. Whoever reneges on the deal, he has the lower hand. He's the one who's at a disadvantage. In other words, whoever goes back on the deal loses out. The Gemara is going to say, whoever changes the terms has the lower hand, and whoever goes back on a deal has the lower hand. We'll get into all these cases. The Gemara will describe all these cases in Mr. Shem tomorrow. Have a good day.